What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're going to be doing a Springans deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one because this is a really interesting fire machine based deck that focuses around using an amazing field spell called Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda, which is an amazing card that basically lets you special summon out your XZ monsters that are Springans XZs from your extra deck for pretty much for free as long as you don't control another one, which is a really amazing effect. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Springans Rocky. So Springans Rocky is a really amazing card that has the ability that if this card is normal or special summon, you can target a Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda or a Springans monster in your graveyard, except another copy of itself, and add it to your hand. And if this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, then you can target one Springans XZ you control and attach this card to that monster's material, which all of your Springans monsters pretty much share that ability, that if this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can target another XZ monster like Merrymaker, and then you can basically attach this card as a material so they can detach to activate effects, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Springans Brothers. What this card does is if this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can target one Springans monster in the graveyard and special summon it in defense position. And if this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can target another Springans XZ you control and attach this card as a material, which is again a really good effect because it's basically going to make sure that your Springans XZs never run out of materials. We then play 2 copies of Pador. Pador is pretty good too, but I just feel like 2 is fine of Pador. You contribute this card to target a Springans monster in your graveyard and special summon it, and if this card is in your hand, field, or grave, then you can attach it to a Springans XZ. We then play 2 copies of Springans Captain Sargus. Sargus is arguably one of the best cards in the entire deck because Sargus has the ability that it can attach itself to a Springans XZ as a material, and then during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can detach material from an XZ monster you control, and then target a face-up card on the field and immediately destroy this card. And if this card is attached to a Springans XZ, it makes that monster gain 500 attack, which is a very good effect to just give them additional 500 attack. We then play 2 copies of Springans Branger. Branger is really good because it has the ability, if this card's in your hand, field, or grave, you can attach as a material to a Springans XZ, and it also has the ability that you can banish this card and another Springans monster with a different name from your graveyard to add a Springans card from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect just to be able to search the deck just by sending this card to the graveyard. We then play a single copy of the Supreme Sovereign Serpent of Golgonda. This card is really an amazing card. It doesn't look like it would belong in this archetype, but it really actually does, and it's a really good card because it's kind of like what the Springans are fighting, which is pretty cool. What this card does is while you have Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda in your field spell zone, then this card's original attack becomes 3,000, and you can only see the effect of this card once per turn. While this card's in your hand or graveyard, if you control a face-up card in your field spell zone, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. And if Great Sand Sea Gold Golgonda is on the field, would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish a monster from your grave instead. So this card is really, really good and really, really easy to summon as a 3k beat stick to your side of the field to be able to use as XZ material, or just use it as a 3k body to be able to help push for game. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom because the 3 Ash Blossoms kind of shut down the opponent because you're going to be trying to stop them from doing all sorts of shenanigans against you, so anytime they touch the deck you can pretty much drop this to stop them. And then we play 3 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma and a single copy of Driver because it helps you protect against a lot of your spells activating in the deck to be able to just stop your opponent from hitting you with a hand trap, so these come in very handy, and plus they can help you summon out a Psyframe Lord Omega. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Called by the Grave because Called by the Grave is a really good one-up that just stops hand traps. We play a single copy of Terraforming because it searches Great Sand Sea very easily and just does extra copies of it in the deck. We play a single copy of Foolish Burial because basically all of your Springans can attach themselves from the hand, field, or graveyard, and with them being able to attach themselves from the graveyard to monsters you control, it's really, really easy to be able to kind of pop off in this deck with Foolish Burial. We then play 3 copies of the Great Great Sandsea Gold Golgonda. So Gold Golgonda is a really amazing card. And what this card does is it makes all of your Spriggan's XZ monsters gain an additional 1,000 attack. And then it also has the ability that you can only use each of the effects of this card once per turn. That if you control no Spriggan's XZs, then you can discard a Spriggan's card to special summon a Spriggan's XZ from your extra deck. And if a face-up Spriggan's XZ monster you control leaves the field by a card effect, which usually is going to be its own card effect or removing it from the field, then you can target one monster your opponent controls and it can't attack for the rest of the turn, even if this card leaves the field, which is a really good effect just to be able to stop your opponent and kind of slow down the game for just removing your cards from the field, because a lot of your cards run away and flee under the sands of Gold Golgonda. We then play 3 copies of Spriggan's Watch, which is arguably one of the best cards in the entire archetype, and lets you add a Great Sandsea Gold Golgonda from your deck to your hand. And if you already control Gold Golgonda when you activate this, you can add a Spriggan's monster from your deck to your hand, and then you get to Foolish Burial a Spriggan's monster from your deck to the graveyard, or send it from your deck to the graveyard to be able to kind of stack the grave so you can then use different cards. Like Branger, you can banish it with another Spriggan's card to get you a search again, so basically it can turn into a double search. You can also get some really good effects off of like Brothers, and there's just some really good cards in this deck to be able to use with Spriggan's Watch. We then play 3 copies of Spriggan's Booty. Spriggan's Booty has the ability to, if an face-up XZ monster you control leaves the field by a card effect, you can target one effect monster opponent controls, and neither player can activate that monster's effects on the field this turn. And you can send this face-up card to the graveyard to activate one Great Sandsea Gold Golgonda directly from the deck or graveyard. So just with that, you have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 copies of Great Sandsea Golgonda. So you should always have your field spell ready to go. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, I'm playing a single copy of Spriggan's Call. Spriggan's Call is a pretty decent card. I thought about cutting it, but I really do like it as a one-of in this deck. It lets you target a Spriggan's monster or Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard and special summon it, which is basically like a Back to the Front, which is pretty good, or a Call by the Haunted, but not as a continuous that targets the monster on your side of the field continuously. It also has the ability that during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card and a fusion monster from your graveyard, which you can get fusion monsters in the graveyard pretty easily in this deck. And it has the ability, then you get to target a Spriggan's XZ you control and attach a fusion monster that list Fallen of Albaz as a material from your extra deck to that monster as a material, which then will let you go off with your copy of Splendid or Iron Dash, which is really good because Iron Dash actually gets you some effects when it's in the graveyard, and then if you can roll it with a copy of Spriggan's Call, you can get multiple effects of that card off, which is pretty good. But a single copy of Spriggan's Blast. Spriggan's Blast is pretty good too, that if you control a Spriggan's monster, you get to choose a monster zone your opponent controls, and if a monster is face up in the monster zone during the turn, it cannot attack directly. Also, its effects are negated, but if there's no monster in that zone, it cannot be used this turn. And if you control a fusion monster that can list a Fallen of Albaz as a material, you can choose 2 zones instead, which is pretty good because basically you can lock an opponent down from a zone that a link monster is pointing to, which can be really, really helpful with this particular card. We then play 3 copies of Dogmatica Punishment. Dogmatica Punishment comes in really handy in a lot of the Dogmatica lore decks because of stuff like your copies of your Titaniclad like monsters, like your copy of Iron Dash, because Iron Dash can be sent to the graveyard off your copy of Dogmatica Punishment, and then you get to pop a monster 2500, or you can send a copy of Elder Entity Nist to the graveyard to get you a double pop, which is really cool, off of your copy of Punishment. We then play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Because this deck doesn't super care about its field, you can let your copies of your Spriggan's monsters that are XZs run away pretty easily. And so these are really good at being able to just board wipe your opponent and have your monsters off the field currently while you're trying to board wipe. So that's it for the traps, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Spriggan's Merrymaker. Merrymaker is probably going to be the first card that you summon out of the entire extra deck. And if this card is special summoned from your extra deck, you get to send a Spriggan's monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can banish this card until the end phase. And if you banish this card with 2 or more XZ materials, you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that lists Fallen of Albaz, which is your Iron Dash. We then play 3 copies of Spriggan's ship, Exablower. Exablower is arguably the best card in the entire extra deck and is the boss monster of this deck. You get to choose one of your opponent's monster zones or spell and trap card zones and detach any number of materials from this card, and if you do, destroy the same number of cards your opponent controls in that chosen zone and its adjacent zones and or spell and trap card zones. And then during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can banish this card until the end phase of the turn. So it's a really interesting pop effect because basically it's an AoE effect that has the ability that if you target this zone, which is like position 4, you can also pop the monster in their extra monster zone. You can also pop the spell and trap below, and you can pop the monster in position 5 and position 3 on their zones as well. So you can actually pop a zone that looks about like this if you detach the materials to be able to pop, which is pretty good. I like that effect a lot of being able to just pop those additional cards on the field because it's a really unique effect. We then play 2 copies of Iron Dash. Iron Dash I just feel like I need as a 2 of because during the main phase you can move this card to another zone. But the big effect, because you're never going to fusion summon into this card, it actually is that if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can add from your deck to your hand or special summon a Spriggan's monster or a Fall of Albaz from your deck, which is the really cool thing because you can loop this card over and over again to be able to send it to the graveyard to get that effect off again and again, turn after turn. We then play for the other monsters that we're playing in this deck. We're going to be playing a single copy of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus. Zeus is just really good in the deck because you play an XZ based deck to board wipe. We play a single copy of number 97 because you play a lot of level 8 monsters. You can make this card extremely easily to then special summon out a number 38 to negate spells, or to special summon out a number 100 to make you a 9,000 beat stick, which is really easy to just throw these monsters out on the field. We play a single copy of Drill Driver because it can help you out overlaying this on top of a Merrymaker to be able to where you don't control a Spriggan's XZ monster with Gold Golgonda anymore, so you get another special summon, which is pretty cool. 1 copy of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is also pretty helpful because it can help you with cards that can't be targeted, that you can just send them to the graveyard, which is pretty good. 1 copy of Psyframe Lord Omega because we do play the Psyframe package in the deck, and a single copy of Elder Entity Nist for the Dogmatica Punishment. So that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to be able to play around with. It's fairly budget as well. The deck is very, very cheap to be able to play. I think I could pick this deck up for less than probably $20 for the core of the deck because it's very inexpensive and it's a very interesting, unique deck that basically lets you special summon your XZs for free. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.